what's up? What's good? What's back with another Let's Talk. In this video, I wanted to go over DLC. So I've heard some talks and people, like some people know some stuff about DLC and the way that works, and some other people they think they know, but they're just kind of guessing and spitballing. And there's a lot of people that are like upset when it comes to DLC and pricing and sometimes with good reason, other times just misinformation. From what I know, what I've seen from hearing developers and publishers talk and about behind the scenes type of things, also seeing stuff on Twitter of developers and the push for like we need this to happen in the game, we need that to happen in the game. Fighting games, especially, they have like, hey, get this guest character and get that guest character, and from what I've seen, from what I know, and this is also going to be slightly a bit of personal opinion, and it's just slightly though. So for the most part, it's going to be facts of what I've seen, what I know. Maybe there is some different ways that stuff goes down that I just don't know about because I haven't heard it from other developers. Because every developer studio, every publisher runs their studios differently. All business is different. Everybody has a different contract. It's not one ironclad contract between all businesses. So it might work differently in different publishers. But the publishers and developers roles in DLC is like, developers want to do so much with their games. Publishers have to give them funding. That's where the developer teams, they get their paycheck so they can sit down and spend hours and years of their lives, hours, weeks, and years, like I said, working on these, basically works of art. Because that's what a game is a work of art that you use to escape from your everyday life for a minute, for hours. Some of us play games a lot, so it's you're going on an adventure inside of a world that is, you got to think of it. It's a digital world. Somebody has to make everything that is on your screen. Whenever you boot up your gaming console, your PC, whatever, somebody had to sit down and program all that. They have to make this stuff. They have to draw it out, 3D animate it, model it, the motion capture, the voiceover work, everything. There's so many pieces to the puzzle that go into all this. Now, DLC, sometimes it can be extra added on content that people come back in to work on and do work, like extra voiceover work after the game's been put out there. Other times they get the DLC right because they know that they can't fit all that into the final product that you're going to receive on a disc and have to download and update and everything for, which that actually brings to mind another, digital or digital only or whatever video. Maybe I'll work on that too. Because that does go into a DLC and everything. Do we need DLC if everything is supposed to be on the disc? Which I'll get to in a minute. So so the whole thing of like publishers funding developers to make the game, and then also how do they pay? So if you've already, as a publisher, if you've already paid a developer for so much time, and development time and work and effort and everything, you've already paid for that with one product, but then you have all this extra content over here that turns into DLC, downloadable content for anybody that's doesn't know what DLC means. How do you go about making that DLC? How do you pay people? Well, that's where the pricing of the DLC comes in. So depending on how much DLC or content is in the DLC, and depending on the type of DLC also, because there is loot box DLC, there's microtransaction DLC, there is episodic DLC, expansion pack DLC. There's so much extra stuff because we are in the age of the internet, and games don't just come as like one final form and then you have to buy a whole new version of the game. That doesn't happen anymore. Mafia just came out with a remastered trilogy, and the very first Mafia 1 is still in development of a remake, where Mafia 2 and 3 that were already released before, they had a full-on HD enhanced version of the games and everything. It didn't do too much. It just made them look sharper, basically, because the textures and everything got reworked, lighting engines got reworked and whatnot. But it's DLC still. That enhancement, that update is another form of DLC. The Rainbow Six Siege, I think Rainbow Six Siege, Apex, and Call of Duty's the new seasons of all these shooting games. That's all DLC also. If they're all updates, they're all DLC. You have a new season pass and all that. That's microtransaction DLC. That's basically, it is an expansion pack, but it's also it's got microtransactions built into the expansion pack. So why does everything cost so much? Because there's so much work and development time that goes into making all this DLC happen. You got to price it up there. Now sometimes we've seen in the past, so like like the loot boxes, or if DLC is already on disc and you have to spend like say something that is a pre-order bonus, and they want you to spend like $4 or $5 to unlock it, something that is already in the main game. That's dirty practices right there. I will say that is where that the pricing should be like maybe $1 if anything. But at the same time, do you want to have extra DLC for that game? Well, then that $5 is going towards getting more DLC down the line, even if it is already built into the game. So you see how everything kind of bounces out, and because this is all business stuff. You're not just going to have developers starve because you want more content in your game. That doesn't happen. That's not the real world. Nothing is for free. If they announce like Mortal Kombat's Aftermath, the reason why they were probably able to make that happen is because they sold so much. The season pass, was it season one or two, all the DLC characters. They sold so many DLC characters that the profits that they made off from selling those led into actually being able to develop Aftermath, make it a whole new storyline and everything to package in with 3 new characters. Now, we have had, a worldwide, lockdown happen, the virus thing that went on and everything. So right now things are a little bit weird with DLC and pricing. We're seeing a lot of games go for free and stuff. But at the same time, you still, all of the development and everything is still being paid off for by DLC being sold. So it is still kind of in the same boat. So the size of DLC and updates and the amount of content that you get in, as I said, kind of goes off from how much profits did the game make. So does game sales affect DLC pricing later on down the road? That might be a question that pops in the head. It can. You can see season pass. If a game sells really well, the season pass, there's a way better chance the season pass is going to go on sale and go on sale for more than just like a 30% off. If a game sells really well, like GTA, you see the microtransaction stuff in that go on sale all the time for like 40 to 60 to 80% off, especially on like PC markets and such. Now, the reason why prices stay up higher on the consoles a lot of time is because of the cut that the like Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, they want to take off from that. But there's also a reason why they take a cut, and there's a reason why, because like Sony, they might not have as much of sales as they do. I think PlayStation Network has a lot of really great sales. There's a lot of like top tier. They have a good percentage off from games, and they're on really top tier AAA titles. A lot of DLC goes on sale a lot of times. People miss them a lot of times too. But Sony's pretty good at like, okay, well, we need this money to be able to keep the servers up and running, to keep PlayStation Network going at a steady pace. At the same time, we don't want to, totally spit in the face of everybody that uses it. We want to give you a good discount, so you do have that incentive to buy more stuff. It's business once again. DLC is just business. When it comes down to loot boxes and stuff like that, and this is where a personal opinion comes in, I don't think so. Loot boxes, if you know what you're going to be getting in that loot box, and there's like let's see here. So I was playing, I think it was PUBG, and I thought PUBG, as much as I don't really care for PUBG as a game, the loot box system was all right. It was decent because you knew like, okay, these 10 or 15 items, is what you're going to get inside this loot box. There's a chance of getting that. Okay, so that's the loot box that I want. And then having Rainbow Six Siege. That's another one that comes to mind. Also, is Siege does a pretty like Ubisoft does a pretty good job of like, okay, you're going to get a loot box for this. The little packs there. It's essentially a loot box. It's RNG. Anything that's RNG based is essentially a loot box. When you're playing like the Division or Ghost Recon or something, it's active RNG. As I've made in other videos before, of you drop soldiers. The more soldiers that you're taking out, the more the bad guys that you're taking out, then they're going to drop loot. It's RNG. They are literally loot boxes. Every enemy is a loot box. They drop weapons, ammo, and stuff. So back to DLC though. Yeah, it's like there's so many different types of DLC. It's funny that I see people complaining about prices and everything. It's like, okay, but okay, if there's, and as I said, like DLC sales, I mean, they happen all the time, but also the price of DLC, the reason why sometimes DLC is through the roof is because the publisher, it's not that the publisher is greedy, it's just that they are selling a lot more units of that game. So they have to, especially like this is the reason why I kind of like all digital going forward, is because if the publisher doesn't have to make as many copies of the game disc, that's a lot of money that they save in the long run. Will they be greedy? I'm sure they probably will be, but they don't have to be as greedy. Will they be? Who knows? It's business. Once again, it's billion-dollar corporations. But that's, you can make us think about that later on. And yes, there's a lot of people that do make us think about that. I mean, the greed part of it, that's business. You're going to see that no matter what. So then when it comes to DLC prices, funding, development, and whether a future title is made. Now this is a big one also. So if you have large DLC sales, like I can guarantee you GTA 6 is going to be, it's going to be massive just on, and I bet you I might Red Dead Redemption 2 also, because GTA 5 is the biggest selling piece of hardware, or biggest piece of entertainment ever sold, something like that. It's got the world record for it. I can guarantee you that parts of that profit went into development of Red Dead Redemption 2 and now GTA 6. Red Dead 2's online and microtransaction stuff is also helping fund GTA 6. Rockstar is using all this stuff to fund their next projects, because that's the way business works. You take what was profitable, and you push that into making your next thing. So again, just the same way that DLC helps make other DLC, there's a reason why the pricing is there. There's a reason why the pricing is as much as it is. Maybe Danny Trejo was a guest character in Black Ops 4 as a DLC character. You can run around in Blackout as Danny Trejo. That contract for him, in between his managers and Activision and Treyarch and everything, that contract, it costs cash. It costs money. So the funding that they get from the DLC sales, the microtransactions, and everything goes into making that contract happen. Arnold Schwarzenegger's likeness was put into Mortal Kombat 11 as a Terminator. That's two major contracts right there. If Mortal Kombat 11 didn't sell well, you would never, how would you pay off that? That there would be a debt there, and you can't have that in game development, or your studio is going to be in a lot of hurt in the long run. Voice actors and this and that stuff, like a lot of stuff does come from the publisher, but in the long run, it also, like the DLC sales, help pay for paying off on all that stuff. So yeah, that's I think that covers a lot of the DLC and pricing points that I've been wanting to make this video for a while now. And I don't know, I just see a lot of people sitting there like, well, publisher or developers shouldn't be selling this stuff for so much. And it's like, well, it's publishers actually. And yes, sometimes publishers do get greedy with their pricing, loot boxes and season passes and this and that. in microtransactions, especially. And mobile gaming was a big part of the reason why that started happening. But there is a reason why the game industry has grown to be the size it is. If you go back and you check out like the amount of AAA titles that we had before microtransactions, or DLC, I should say, um, before DLC hits, and then the amount of AAA like big budget titles that we have now afterwards, you'll see that it like doubled. And that's just because they have way more funding to be able to do way cooler stuff, to make way better, game engines. Thus, for you need way better hardware, which then we actually, in the long run, we get something like a PS5, or like way bigger hardware in PC gaming and such. So yeah, I mean and that's one thing where Nintendo, I mean, if you notice the Switch I don't think has quite as much DLC, or if they do, they don't sell it for like a huge, profit. And you'll notice that the Switch is kind of lacking behind on hardware, the hardware side of things. It still runs at like 1080. It runs at, I'm pretty sure, 60 FPS, but it's, and it is a different type of system too. It's a handheld, so of course, but the docking bay, I mean, who's to say if they didn't have more funding, or if they, if they didn't have more profits, I should say, that they couldn't have made that docking bay be a little graphics card that made it look, 3 times better on your television screen. Again, it's business. It's just the way business works. So, anyways, this video has been going on for a little bit, so I will end it there, and just I just wanted to share that little bit of information that I know after seeing like a bunch of like information on Twitter, especially of people just being kind of confused about how the business works. And like I've just paid attention, I guess, to how publishers and developers, when they talk about how the business works behind the scenes, and people don't really pay attention to that and listen to, I guess, nowadays. They just want to get angry. Ah. So hopefully this maybe clears up any confusion out there too. And yeah, so thanks for tuning in. Thanks for stopping by. And as always, I will see ya next time.